I'm Kevin Casey. I'm a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And right now what I'm about to do is issue a warning out to all other competitors.
I like my money. I'm kind of pro-gun.
I don't want overs. I just expect them to happen.
Fatty's gonna fatty is real.
He is terrible!
I want to go quick because I don't give a fuck about anything that's going to happen on Saturday.
Welcome to this week's edition of the MMA Analysis podcast. I am your host, Brad Taschuk. We've been gone for a week, but we're back. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but last time we had a pretty good show, pretty fun show. It was ahead of UFC 211?
Yep.
Yeah. Not a bad pay-per-view. It turned out all right. You know, good fights on paper and some pretty decent fights when it actually played out. We're not going to review that card in total just because it's a couple weeks past and we've got 12 fights or something like that with, I'm going to pull a lance here, with a bunch of guys I've never heard of. So you know that they're really unknowns if that's the case. So we'll get into UFC Fight Night 109, the card from Stockholm that's coming up on Sunday, because it's Memorial Day weekend and all, and you know they didn't want to go head-to-head with the NCAA lacrosse Final Four, so you got to switch it to the Sunday.
As long as they go head-to-head with the Indianapolis 500, because, you know...
What's that?
Exactly.
So first, we're going to talk about a couple events that have happened recently in MMA. The first, I don't really know anything about it, aside from going on Twitter and seeing that Cyborg punched some chick who's apparently in the UFC. Jay, why don't you fill us in on this one?
I'm fully expecting to see an Instagram photo at some point in the next couple of days of Angel Magana's ass and a caption that says, "Look at my black eye."
Brown eye?
Heyo. And as you heard, we are also joined by Sean. Sean, you have any insight, any scoop on Cyborg and Magana, the hard-hitting MMA story of the week?
I don't know. I think it's funny just because, I don't know, people get outraged. I mean, shit happens between like Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa at the press conference. I mean, that pretty much it stayed in the news a bit, and nothing really came of it. And then Magana talks shit all the time to Cyborg, and then gets slapped. And people are thinking that Cyborg should never fight again, and all. Like, you guys get picked on in school and go call the cops or what? I don't... There's just some soft motherfuckers out there like, oh, these guys are fighters, they have to be, they have to be more, respectful and can't use their hands, they're deadly weapons and all this shit. It's like, man, if you talk shit, be ready to get hit. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, they're not
talk shit, get spin kicked.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like she hit a random fan who's been talking crap to her.
Yeah.
No fighting experience. I mean,
no, like, she weighs 40 more pounds than her. Like, well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're going to talk all that shit, whether it be Twitter or not, but then when you see the person, you know, face to face and say, "Bitch, I'll say whatever the fuck I want," then expect to get smacked up. I mean, seriously, dude. And then, like, all these
trying
people
to get pity.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Well, she's gonna try to sue, is what she's gonna try to do, because she's fucking worthless, can't fight, can't work a job, you know. But all these motherfuckers that just bag on Cyborg, dude, just like, oh, she's roid raging on shit. Like, dude, like, all your favorite fighters have done steroids. Like, all of them. 99% of them have done steroids. Shut the fuck up with this steroid shit and fighting. Like Sean said, like, they're fucking fighters. What do you expect? You put all these motherfuckers together, give them alcohol and all this shit, and not expect shit to happen. You know what I'm saying? And
it's not like that was the only, like, altercation. There was many others, like,
Yeah,
But
Perry
this one,
and-
I think
and
because this one,
Stevens
they
got
were,
into it.
exactly, they did some pushing and stuff like that. Like, I think it's just because these are women, people are outraged about it. Like, man, if a Diaz bro just slapped the shit out of somebody, you think
They'd be
everybody be
laughing.
freaking out and calling them, yeah, it's fucking stupid.
My theory is the UFC said, alright, Cyborg, you're on door duty. If anyone that's not in the UFC tries to get in this meeting, you just slap the shit out of them. And
So it was a roadhouse
she didn't
situation.
think that Angela Magana was in the UFC. Neither did I. So, what's the
I
problem?
thought she was some
I mean, you have to
wannabe
wonder.
Instagram model.
Alright, finally, I didn't introduce him, but you heard that sultry voice. Wes, how you doing?
Man, great. Good to be back, guys. Needed a night, anniversary last night, so you know how you kind of get locked down on a night like that.
Well, so
So
the
what
UFC
more?
moved the card to Sunday for you, so we could have this extra day to do the podcast.
Yeah, and then like Jay said, like nobody gives a fuck about Indy, so they play it during that, and then the Coke 600 starts at night, right after the fights, the real racing. So
Boom.
UFC knows what's going on there.
There we go. Good stuff. The other thing that we're going to talk about is the middleweight division. We're going to have two champs.
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 Oh, sort of.
Let's talk about the
We're gonna
real.
have
Can we just get
real
rid of
champs.
belts? Can we just say, fuck these, just give us fights. We don't give a shit about your champion contracts and shit.
I like it because it's 5 rounds, though.
I love how
That's
Joanna
the
tried to
only
give
reason I care
Jessica.
about, the only reason I agree with interim title fights. Because if they're not
I
a main
lo-
event, they get 5 rounds.
Brad, I really like how Joanna gave Jessica Andrade Michael Bisping's championship belt.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Michael Bisping is a great human being.
Oh,
Oh, God.
Michael Bisping is so good that George St. Pierre won't fight him.
He's so good that he's blocked me on Twitter for continuing to annihilate him with insults.
Fair enough. So, anyways, what we're referring to is Bisping doesn't want to fight Yoel, which who can blame him? And now we're gonna get Yoel against the Oceanic Ocelot, Bobby Whitaker. Sean, thoughts on that fight?
First of all, it's just an awesome fight. These two guys have looked very impressive lately. I mean, obviously Whitaker knocking out Jacare is crazy impressive, and Yoel coming off knocking out Weidman and beating Jacare. It's a wild fight. When it came out, I don't know, yesterday or whatever it was, I usually kind of just have a gut feeling in a fight, but this is one where I just have no idea what's going to happen in it. It might be one of those ones where I just have no edge in it, and I can just sit back and enjoy the violence. It's going to be awesome.
The 53-year-old Cuban is going to do some wild shit. That's what's going to happen.
As he always does.
Those Cuban birth certificates.
Wes, what are you thinking about this fight?
Man, well, first, has there ever been a champion in combat sports that is as deathly afraid of another man than Michael Bisping is of YOLO? Like, scared to absolute death of that man. Like,
Cormier.
he steps in at least.
That's true.
Rondame, when it comes to Cyborg, that's about the only one that's coming close.
Cormier's got that hope in the back of his head that Jones is going to fuck up and
Delusional.
not show up to the fight. So he's got that going for him.
Bisping has seen the parking garage video, and he wants nothing of that fucking man. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, man, YOLO and Whitaker is just crazy. It's right there with one of the best fights that you can do in the division and the whole sport, honestly. Like Sean, I usually have a kind of a gut feeling when I first see a fight, and to me, I think YOLO is still got an advantage, man. Like, what Whitaker did to Jacare was very, very impressive, but Yolo's a different human being, man, just on any given night. And I'll give, people, I'm sure a lot are gonna pick Whitaker here, especially the people that bet him against Jacare. Why would you jump off that train now? But, Weidman was getting a little bit, better of Yolo in that fight, but it just at any time, man, you never know, that dude can just dead you. So I kind of lean Yolo, but it's a fantastic fight, man. Unbelievable fight.
Jay, thoughts?
Yeah, it's exciting mainly because it's a fresh matchup, and it's two guys who've never fought for a championship before in this organization, and that really does make it exciting. It could have been Mousasi in the spot too, which would have been entertaining as well. But I like this one because both guys have real knockout power, and it's totally interesting. I think I guess from a business standpoint, I think Yolo winning, and God knows what kind of speech that could end up being with his Paul Heyman-like translator. It's a really cool dynamic, and there could definitely be some interesting things that they can do there. I mean, Whitaker winning is pretty cool too, though, because he's so much younger and kind of has that whole young vibe, and a real. I think that would be the first ever Oceanic champion.
Wow.
So that's a cool dynamic too, which is, I guess. So yeah, I mean, this really isn't a situation where the UFC loses in any way. I think both are interesting. I mean, obviously Yolo's a little older. I mean, I personally like Yolo just because he's like a freak, and I like freak fighters. And like Wes says, he's got like a history of the theatrics, and he's kind of a guy who does things other guys can't do, and that's the X factor in this fight. But I wouldn't be shocked if Whitaker clipped him. But yeah, the Yolo X factor, kind of gets me every time. Definitely can't fade him.
I'm with you there, Jay. As much as I like him because of his fighting style, the fact that he gets on so many people's nerves makes me just love Yolo that much more. So, and everybody's like, they're kind of doing the Masvidal thing with Whitaker now, where they're just all over his nuts, and man, he's a really good fighter, but people are just getting a little bit crazy with it. So I'd like to see Yolo keep breaking hearts and making things happen. So we'll see what happens with that fight, but should be a good time. Do you guys remember the last time Michael Bisping fought an actual contender or challenger? It's been a long time.
Luke Rockhold.
It was UFC 199.
Well, and the last time he fought a 63-year-old man and came out looking like his face was raw hamburger. So
and was almost deaded twice.
Man, just crazy. Oh well.
At least we can kind of forget about that with this matchup. That's an awesome part about this matchup. It's making me give less and less fucks about Bisping, GSP. This is the real championship here. I don't care about Bisping.
In the UFC rankings, if the champion wasn't automatically first, because Bisping would be the champion, he'd be ranked 6th in the division.
Yeah. Have to look at that.
Yeah, probably 5th, 6th, somewhere around there.
Yep. So good times. Anyways, we've got some fights to look forward to from Sweden this weekend. So we are going to get into UFC Fight Night 109. Kicking it off in the UFC Fight Pass lightweight division, we've got Marcin Held trying to finally get that first win in the UFC against Damir Hadzovic. Jay?
Yeah, I got both these guys at C-. Marcin Held came over from Bellator with a pretty good amount of hype. All the Bellator fanboys were, every time somebody comes over that was pretty well above average in Bellator, they come to the UFC, they get all excited about, what's this guy going to do in the UFC? And Marcin Held, for, lack of a better term, has laid a complete turd. He was terrible the Diego Sanchez fight. Had no idea how to deal with the altitude in Mexico City. Was taken down at will, lost a clear decision. And then, he was beaten soundly. It was a split decision, but he lost the fight against Joe Lozon.
Did he though?
Did
he?
What? Yeah, it kind of did. It wasn't a great performance by any stretch of the imagination, though. I mean,
that I can agree with, but I still think he won that fight.
Yeah.
Joe Lozon thinks he won that fight.
Yep.
That's true. He did say that, but you can't trust Joe Lozon. I mean, he's been hit in the head a lot. So.
That's very true as well.
So now he's going to be going back overseas, Sweden, facing another European fighter. I mean, so kind of a European versus European thing, even though Held's been fighting the U.S. a lot. And he's facing a guy that, has pretty darn good hands. People don't know a ton about him. And, Held's, like a 3.5 to 1 favorite, to get his first UFC win. Seems a bit much to me. If I'm going to bet this fight, it's got to be, the underdog. Marcin Held hasn't shown me anything, in the UFC thus far that he's capable of being that size of a favorite over just about anybody.
Agreed there. Sean?
Yeah, Held really just kind of hasn't progressed as we kind of thought he would. It kind of looked like he was getting there at the end of his Bellator career. He was kind of looked like he's improving his hands, and maybe his cardio was getting a little bit better, and then it kind of seems like it's went down the tubes in the UFC. There's some pretty well respected guys that are taking the shot on Hadzovic. Like Jay said, he does have good hands. It's going to be interesting to see if he can keep Held off him long enough so he can use those hands. I think Held's going to win, but I guess I can't blame anybody for taking the shot. And if people really keep parlaying Held, then it reaches minus 350, almost minus 400. I might have to put a small stab on Hadzovic as well.
Yeah, this card's getting to the point where I almost don't even have to look at props to throw together my round robin, because some of these lines are getting ridiculous. Wes, your thoughts on Held and Hadzovic?
Yeah, kind of a lot of what those guys said. I was one of those dudes that thought Held was ready to take that next step, man. But he just hasn't. Just seems like he hasn't improved. Questionable cardio. Still the defensive wrestling isn't that good. He likes to be on the mat, but if a guy can stay on top of him and just control him, man, he's in trouble. Hadzovic is going to be the bigger guy here. He's a really big lightweight. I just can't see how you can lay minus 320 on Held at this point, the way he's looked in 2 fights in the UFC. I totally get guys taking a shot here. Like Sean said, if he gets up to plus 300 or something like that, then I'll have to throw a little bit of money on him. Probably going to take Hadzovic and Toutmaster as well. So yeah, the pick's going to be the underdog here.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a close fight. I do lean slightly towards Marcin Held. The only reason for that is because I'm really not sure how good Hadzovic's takedown defense is, and if Held is able to get you on the ground, he's still got really, really good skills there, and he's definitely significantly better than Hadzovic on the mat. So if Held gets takedowns, he's definitely going to win this fight. If Hadzovic is able to stop those takedowns and to keep Held in the clinch, he's got a really nasty clinch game, really hard knees that he can make Held pay with. And I think if he wins, it's probably going to be by stoppage, actually. Held is a really tough fighter, but I think that Hadzovic hits hard enough and hits hard enough in the right ways that he might be able to get Held out of there. So tempted to take that underdog shot that everyone's talking about. Or maybe even look at Hadzovic by stoppage, which is in like the plus 575 range. Moving up to the welterweight division, we have left-handed Darren Till taking on Jason Ayari, who he fought in the UFC, but I don't remember that fight against Jim Wallhead at all. Jay?
Yeah, I don't remember a ton of it either. I got Till a C-, Ayari a D. Again, Till has a good amount of hype too. A little unjustifiably so, as Brad says. He's basically a one-sided fighter. Iari has a win over Wallhead, which is a pretty decent win over a veteran. He also beat Mikel Abud, who used to be in the UFC as well. Pretty aggressive striker. Pretty young as well, kind of like Till. I mean, I think Till is a bit better, a little more seasoned, even though he's pretty young. But again, kind of like the first fight on the card. You have a favorite who's basically 3.5 to 1, and an underdog at 3 to 1. Oh man, you just think that one of these two underdogs in these first two fights is going to come through. I'm just not sure which one it's going to be.
Sean?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jay, Till hasn't fought in a year and a half since that draw with Dalby.
Maybe he was looking for his right hand.
Who knows? He could show up and all of a sudden he could have a right hand and he could actually be a decent fighter. That is a definite possibility.
Just gonna grow.
But yeah, like Jay said as well, that was a very unmemorable fight against Jim Wallhead for Iari. But yeah, Till's getting parlayed up again. He's minus 350 at dimes. It's another spot where if it keeps going up, I'm probably going to have to take a small shot. And maybe take both the first two underdogs and Tout Master and even put a little bit of money on them and hope one of them cashes, and then you'll come out positive.
Wesley?
Yeah, I think Till is probably the little better fighter at this point. But man, this line's just a little stupid to me as well. Ari has beaten it, like you said, it's hard to remember the fight, but he beat Wallhead and Labute, kind of the quote unquote European guys that they use for those shows over there. He took both of those guys out. And just Till hasn't fought in, I believe, in almost 2 years now. I just can't see how you lay minus 350 on a guy that ain't been in there in almost 2 years against another decent young up and coming fighter from that area. Like Sean said, I'll probably take a little shot here on this one as well, and Tout Master, and hope one of the two get there. They both could possibly get there. So yeah, another underdog pick for me here.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning the same way. You've got two guys here. Both of them are pretty young, 24 years old. Till, I guess his signature performance was a draw against Nicholas Dalby. And yeah, he looked pretty good in the first 2 rounds there. We've come to learn that Dalby doesn't really have great defense when it comes to striking. So who knows how much of that we can really take into account against a guy who seems like a pretty solid striker in Iari. And then Till, I think he broke his hand in that fight, which means he was down to a left leg, and that was it. And he also got tired quite a bit in that fight, and Dalby came back and just was laying it on him in the 3rd round. So it'll be interesting to see, because we saw Iari, he got dropped against Wallhead late in that fight, but he still had some pretty decent gas left in the tank. So I think that he's going to be able to do enough late in this fight that he's just going to take it over and probably steal a close decision in this one. So even though he's the underdog, I think I'm outright going to be picking Iari, and plus 290 right now, that seems like something I'd want to take a shot at. Moving up to the Fox Sports 1 prelims, again in the welterweight division, we have Nico Musoke taking on Bojan Velichkovic. Bojan. Bojangles.
Yeah, I got both these guys a C-. I think this is a pretty interesting fight too. And again, just like the last fight, there's a guy coming off a really long layoff. I think Musoke's layoff's even longer than Darren Till's. I think it's closer to 2 years.
It's over 2. It's like 2.5.
Jesus Christ. He hasn't fought since 2015. Oh my goodness, yeah, it's a long time. And you know, when he was a welterweight, you know, and fighting consistently in the UFC, you know, he was fairly competitive against some decent fighters. But it was mainly, you know, grappling, kind of grinding type of style. You know, he could do that here against Velikovic. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's able to get Velikovic to the mat and, you know, grind out a decision. But I've learned, you know, spending a good amount of time with these fights over the years and just studying the sport, is that when fighters come off that long of a layoff, it's more often than not a bad experience, and at the very least a slow start, which is going to put him behind. And you know, Velikovic isn't special at all. You know, he's a fairly smart fighter, but his grappling game isn't great. But he fights fairly smart. He's long for the weight class, and you know, he's a pretty decent striker. You kind of have to side with him, despite going against a guy from Sweden, fighting in front of hometown fans. It's just too long of a layoff to think that he's going to get the job done. So I'm going to go with Bojan Velikovic in this one. But this for me is a total pass from a betting perspective. I'll sit back and see if the long layoff you know, angle works again.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm not betting this fight. Both these guys are not very good, and Musoke hasn't fought in 2.5 years. I will pick Bojangles just because he's fought more recently, even though he lost to the Sultan. But I think Musoke is more skilled, but when you're not in the cage for 2.5 years, who the hell knows what you're going to look like? So yeah, I'll pick Bojangles.
Wes?
Yeah, I think Musoke's the more skilled guy here, but I think Jay's exactly right. With a 2.5 year layoff, at best it's going to be a slow start, I would think. So, and Bohan, he comes forward, man. He's got a pretty decent clinch. I can see him taking that first round, and then you just need one of those second two. So, at plus 130, I'll probably take a small shot on Bojangles here.
Yeah, I can see the rationale behind that. You know, guy coming off a huge layoff, you might have that slow start, so you could see Bojan stealing the first round, and that huge layoff again could come into play late in the fight. Musoke might start to get tired, fade a little bit, and Bojangles is one of those guys. He's, you know, never really doing a whole lot, but he's always hanging around. So if you've got an off night, he's going to be able to take advantage and maybe sneak out a win. And at the very least, you know that fights with him are always going to be close, competitive type of fights. So I'm not going to be playing the money line here, but the one thing I do like, because I don't see a finish, is Bojan by decision is plus 258, which I think is pretty crazy.
Very good.
Especially when you look at, you know, Musoke, who isn't a finisher by any means. His decision line's plus 140, and the fight is lined pretty close. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think if you're looking for an angle here and you don't really have a huge lean, you know, like everyone, I think this fight's going to decision. I think it's going to be competitive, so I'll take that plus 260 shot, maybe throw it in a round robin or something. Next up in the lightweight division, we've got the purse snatcher, Reza Madadi, taking on Joaquin Silva.
Yeah, I got both these guys a C-. I believe this is Madadi's last career fight. He's going to be retiring at the end of the bout, so you have that angle in play, fighting in Sweden again. That's interesting. You know, I think the last time we saw a guy fight in front of, I guess, relatively hometown crowd, retire was, I believe it was, Brad Pickett, who was leading his fight, and then, you know, blew it late in the third.
Got knocked the fuck out.
What a terrible human being that Marlon Vera is. How could you do that to Brad Pickett?
I guess the big difference between that is Madadi, I don't think's ever been finished.
Nope.
Not even our boy, everyone's boy,
Joseph Duffy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lost money on that, I'm pretty sure. Didn't we take him by inside the distance?
We did.
Yeah. Duffy had, it was all over him, but yeah, that shows a lot. Dottie's not being finished in this fight by Joaquim Silva. But Silva's interesting moving forward. He's undefeated. And Madadi's definitely aging. And if he can't get you down, he does tend to slow down on the feet. This is a fight Silva should win. And if it was somewhere else, I would potentially look to bet it, but I'm not sure in close round situations, which I could see this fight potentially being. I could see Madadi, getting a, little hometown favoring, a little hometown cooking, and maybe getting the job done. So I think this one's a little bit tricky. And I'm going to pass on betting it. In terms of talent, I think Silva is the better fighter, though, at this point.
Sean?
Yeah, when I looked at this fight, you look at Silva's record, and all of his wins are in the first round other than one. So I thought we might get a better odds on the total, but it's sitting at 2.5 minus 220 just because of how tough Madadi is, and just nobody can seem to finish him. I guess I could see, Silva putting him on him early and Madadi just being so tough and gritting it out and maybe he gasses. And maybe Madadi can take the second and third, but we've seen Madadi gas as well, so I don't know. This definitely screams pass. I'm picking Silva to pick up a win. I don't think he'll be able to finish. I wish that overprice was a little bit cheaper, and I would play it. And I guess Madadi is the purse snatcher is gonna retire and go do something he's better at than fighting, like maybe purse snatching.
I want an MMA reality show with Reza Madadi and Lightning Lee Murray. Just plotting heists all over the world.
Would watch.
Reza's like, nah, dude, we're just gonna go snatch him purse over, and Lee's like, fuck that, dude, we're hitting the bank. You gotta think big, Reza.
Lee Murray's got expensive tastes, man. He needs that money. He's got to go knock Tito Ortiz out in some alleyways somewhere.
Murray's all about that ROI. He wants that return on investment.
Yeah. Murray is a fan of MMA gambling Twitter and that ROI. Wes, what do you got here?
Oh, shit. Man, I could actually see Sean's scenario happening in this fight. Silva should win. He's the younger guy, the more up and coming dude. He's far more skilled than Reza, but man, this is a tough old purse snatcher, man. And I think if he can get out of the first, he could make this very interesting. I don't know if I can bet him, but he'll probably be a top master pick for me. Pretty much all underdogs for me so far in here, but yeah, Silva should win this fight, but being in Sweden and could absolutely see this, getting funny on the scorecards if it makes it that far. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Reza and top master, but probably no bet.
Yeah, I honestly haven't been too impressed by Silva thus far in the UFC. He got that 30-second knockout over Andrew Holbrook, but Andrew Holbrook, it's not the most impressive thing in the world. And then he went to a competitive split decision against Nazareno Malagari, the Argentinian grappling sensation from Bellator. And that was basically a 15-minute striking battle, except for a takedown that Malagari got in the second, I believe. Also, I was looking at the scorecards for that fight. Somehow two judges scored that fight 30-27 for Silva, which is kind of crazy. I remember it being a lot closer than that. Anyways, I also remember that time that Frankie Edgar was even money against Yair Rodriguez, but
That was a good time.
Oh, good shit.
Anyways, I think that Reza's got a good shot here. He's the purse snatcher, and I think he might have one more purse to snatch here, and that's going to be his win bonus in addition to that show money. So he's going to get out there, and the old man's going to get a couple takedowns, just control from top position, and I don't think that Silva's going to be able to do enough in between in terms of volume or in terms of stopping to take the decision. So I like Reza Madadi. I think he pulls it off and waltzes off into the sunset with the authorities on his tail. Next up, we are moving to the middleweight division. We have Chris Camozzi taking on Hot Sauce Trevor Smith. Jay?
The booking of this fight, not the fight really, but the location of the fight makes zero sense. Every other fight on this card includes a European fighter against either another European or from somewhere else around the world. But there's at least one European fighter.
Well, you know why it is, Jay. They were just trying to make sure that they booked Chris Camozzi in a location where he wouldn't be harassed with pre-fight advice.
Brad, what kind of advice would you give Chris Camozzi in this bout?
I think he should watch out for leg kicks.
Trevor Smith does have those high quality leg kicks.
Right? I'm saying.
Yeah. You have to check them.
Also, this was originally supposed to be Siedenblad against Chris Camozzi.
Oh, okay. So, I guess they couldn't find another European middleweight. I guess they don't exist.
Pretty much.
Nope.
Yeah,
Where's Scott Askham at?
Ask him.
Who did Askham lose to like a few months ago? Oh,
I don't know.
man.
Probably Christoph Jotko.
Damn it, Brad. Got my mind thinking. I got both these guys at D+. This fight, I think, is fairly close. Both guys have a way to win. I mean, if Camozzi keeps it on the feet, I mean, he's got a distinct advantage over Smith with volume. Could slow him down, absolutely, and just hit him really with movement and volume. Problem is, his takedown defense sucks. We saw it again against Daniel Kelly. He had no answer. Once Kelly took him to the mat, he was basically like a dead fish. Once he's on the ground, he ain't getting back to his feet for the rest of the round. So Trevor Smith is able to implement some takedowns here. I mean, gets two. I mean, wins the fight. That's how this game works. It's really that simple. I think Trevor Smith could do that. Am I confident in it? No. But at plus 205? Okay. I mean, you got me. I mean, this fight should probably be about like 165 to Chris Camozzi, like 135 or so on Trevor Smith. I mean, that's really where I see it lined, and it's obviously a lot different than that. So, I do favor Camozzi just slightly, but Trevor Smith is definitely worth a bet at that price.
For your information, Jay, Scott Askham lost to Brad Scott.
Why is Brad Scott not in this fight?
I don't know.
Unless I guess that's the problem. They're saving him for that Glasgow card maybe in July because it's
gotta spread all those euros out.
I'm sure he really brings in the ticket sales.
Oh yeah, huge.
Sean, what do you got here?
The opening total on this fight was 2.5, and the over was minus 135. I wasn't around my computer when the odds were released, I don't think, or maybe I was just sleeping. But that is something that I wish I would have grabbed. I don't think either of these guys are going to be able to finish. It's going to be a sloppy fight, probably a boring fight. And since then, the total has jumped up, and now it's minus 220. It's happened a couple times recently where I've kind of missed an opener or just missed some lines on some totals and didn't end up playing them, and then they hit anyway. So I might just play it really small just so I don't kick myself for not playing it at all. As for a side in this fight, maybe we're undervaluing Camozzi because he lost to Dan Kelly, which I guess isn't the worst thing in hindsight.
Very respectable loss.
But man, did he look bad in that fight. And I had money on him, so maybe that makes it even worse. And Trevor Smith is definitely not a very good fighter, but he does have a way to win. He could get Camozzi down, like Jay said. And that price is fairly high for what could be a terrible close fight. So, if it goes up a little bit more, I might have to take another one of these small shots and pick Hot Sauce Smith and old Toutmaster.
Wesley?
Yeah, Camozzi he's not that good. Trevor Smith isn't that good. But I agree with everything Jay said. Trevor Smith has an absolute path to victory here. Camozzi couldn't stop my takedowns. I couldn't.
Or your leg kicks.
Well, I was in the vicinity, so he probably knows to check my leg kicks. So
those are some vicious takedowns you got there too, Wes. Don't downplay your takedowns.
And they're not bad. I think I could get Lance to the mat a couple times, but that's I'm gonna take the shot here too. Trevor Smith plus 205. I can absolutely see him still in a couple rounds here. Another underdog on this card for me, Trevor Smith.
I heard that Lance has a worse sprawl than what's that Iranian chick that's Canadian? Randa Marcos.
Oh, Randa Marcos.
Yeah, he's got worse single leg defense than Randa Marcos too.
Maybe he should show up for work and defend himself
every once in a while. Yeah. Echoing what Sean said about the total, I think it was a lot lower because we had those two fights early in Smith's UFC career where he got stopped in the first minute. But other than that, all of his fights have gone to decision. I think he's had like 6 or 7 fights that have gone to decision in the UFC, and then those 2 quick stoppages. So Camozzi doesn't have a lot of power, so I imagine that this fight is going to decision as well. And I could really see those 1 or 2 takedowns from Trevor Smith deciding this fight. So plus 205 here is a little crazy to me. Camozzi's tough. He's hard to finish. I think that the only guy that's finished him in forever is Jacare, doing it twice. So plus 290 on Trevor Smith by decision. Oh, it's moved down to plus 275. Somebody must be listening in on our conversation.
Bastards.
So plus 275 is still, a lot of extra value on Trevor Smith for what I think is, either the most or second most likely outcome for this fight. I would guess that Camozzi by decision would be the most likely. So I think it's a close fight. I really think it could go either way, but given what we've seen out of Camozzi's defense, I really have to assume that Smith's going to be able to get him down at least a couple times. And I'm really not sure that Camozzi's going to be able to do what it takes to get up from his back. So I'm going to pick Trevor Smith here and look at that Smith by decision. Next up in the Fox Sports 1 preliminary main event, bantamweight division, we've got Pedro, what's he, the young Punisher? Can't he just be the Punisher at this point? Against Damien.
The 30-year-old Punisher.
Yeah.
You're 30, dude.
Just the regular aged Punisher. Against
I got Damien
Stasiak.
Yeah.
Jake, go ahead.
Stasiak. I got Damien Stasiak a D, Pedro Munoz a B-. Man, I was kind of licking my chops when this fight was first announced, and I was like, "Wow, this is a one-sided thing." I mean, it's not as one-sided as Jessica Andrade calling out, Angela Magana today, but pretty one-sided. Yeah, I mean, is it going to be
as one-sided as Frankie Edward versus Yair Rodriguez?
It could be.
Hey, what was the back on that fight, Sean?
Not gonna get even money.
It's damn near even money. Yeah, I know. It's wild.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. On the feet, so Damien Stasiak has fought in the UFC 3 times. The most amount of significant strikes he's landed in a fight was what he landed against Davey Grant, and it was 14. 14 significant
I feel like
strikes
most
in
of those
about.
were on the ground too.
It's 12 and a half minutes. I think the fight ended in the third minute of the third round. So 12, 13 minutes, 14 significant strikes. He's averaging so far in his UFC career 0.85 significant strikes a minute. Pretty much about the lowest output I've seen from a fighter. Munoz lands about 4 significant strikes a minute. He's a kind of a forward moving fighter. Surely his footwork isn't very good. He's a little bit slow, Pedro Munoz, for this weight class, but his output's just so much higher. He actually hits with power. And what Stasiak's going to be doing during this fight, and what Munoz knows is coming, is going to be looking for takedowns the entire time. And the thing with that is that Pedro Munoz, he might have a top 5, top 6 guillotine choke in MMA. Never mind just in this weight class. I mean, this guy is able to find this choke pretty much out of nowhere. He could probably do it blindfolded, honestly. I mean, that's what he does. I mean, the submission he secured against Russell Doan, the one he secured against Justin Scoggins were things of beauty. I mean, they really were. He's a guy who's had a split. Sure did. And he had a split decision loss with Jimmy Rivera, so he's shown he can fight with some of the top fighters in the division, and he's a guy who wins fights, and that's really what it comes down to. He finds ways to win fights overall, and he's a pretty good fighter. Damian Stasiak's not that. He's basically a grappler with no offensive output. He's never been finished in his career, but I think that comes to an end here because he's going to leave his neck exposed, and Pedro Munoz is going to make him tap. That's how this fight ends. I mean, even at 7-1, you're like, okay. I mean, it's hard to say anyone's a 7-1 favorite in MMA. I mean, except for like an Andrade versus Magana. But I mean, Munoz gets this done. Really, the only way he loses is if he gets put on his back, doesn't get the submission, and basically lays there for 15 minutes like a dead fish. I don't see that happening because he's going to do enough work on the feet, and then he gets the submission anyway. So I like Pedro Munoz. He gets the win, but the bet I like is the under 2.5. I've already put it in at plus 120 actually earlier this week. It's currently plus 100, or it was when I saw it earlier today. I think that's a pretty good price. It's better than the Munoz inside the distance price, which I think is minus 120. So you're getting a 20% discount on this fight ending inside 2.5 rounds, which I really like because I think Munoz gets the job done with the submission, the guillotine.
Sean?
Kind of perplexing booking here. You go from, Justin Scoggins, who's a decent flyweight, maybe an okay, bantamweight, and then they put him against Stasiak. Like, Stasiak, not that long ago, lost to Yeltsin Meza. Like, what are they doing here with Munoz here? Like, they couldn't find somebody in the top 10, top 15 to put him against? Like, Munoz is good. I mean, that's no shock here. He's a minus 700 favorite. Obviously, he's good. One angle that I like to play with a big favorite like that, who I think is going to dominate with a very good chance of finishing, is the minus 3.5 prop. It's obviously not out. He usually comes out either the day before the fight or possibly 2 days before the fight. It will likely be in the high 200s or mid 300s range. I think that's still worth it. I think he's gonna dominate Stasiak here. Along with that, I'm playing the under 2.5, like Jay. I'm gonna put it in right now for plus 2 or plus 100. He's just going to catch him. It's just going to be a matter of time. Stasiak doesn't have offense on the feet, so he's going to want to grapple. And do you really want to grapple with Pedro Munoz? I don't think so. So that's when I'm going to get. Going to put the minus 3.5 when it comes out in a parlay with something, and then I'm taking the under 2.5.
Wesley.
Yeah, I think Sean is right about this booking. Like, what are you doing with a 30-year-old like serious prospect, putting him on fucking FS1 at noon from Sweden against this guy? I mean, they just don't even know what they're doing over there anymore, man. But yeah, Munoz is going to win this fight. Stasiak, he wants to grapple do you want to grapple with Pedro Munoz? That's just idiotic, man. I love the under here, 2.5. The points handicap, like Sean said, will be played as well. But yeah, this is about my most confident pick on the entire card. Munoz is gonna roll.
Yeah, it's hard to see a path to victory here for Damian Stasiak. The other thing that I'll add to Jay's little stats on him is, in addition to all those terrible striking stats that he's got, he also has 0% takedown defense. He doesn't even try to defend takedowns.
Fuck it.
So if Munoz decides that, hey, I don't want to strike with this guy for some reason, even though I've got a massive striking advantage, I can just take him down, and he'll be fine there as well. He has a big advantage on the ground. And, continuing the little statistic talk here, Pedro Munoz has 50% takedown defense. So I looked back through his fights because I was like, oh, that's not very good. But, he's got a good guillotine, so maybe that can mitigate it a little bit. He goes for the guillotine. And I looked, and he's been taken down 4 times in his UFC career. 3 of those were by Rafael Assunção. So take that fight out of the equation, because Rafael Assunção is a top 5 bantamweight. He's been taken down 1 time, and he has 3 guillotine wins. So if you try and take this guy down, chances are you're getting guillotined instead. So good luck with that. Damian Stasiak, who has 0 striking, 0 takedown defense, so he's going to end up on his back at any time, and only needs to grapple offensively to win. So I think that Pedro Munoz gets this done. I think he either wraps up that guillotine or he's able to hurt Stasiak on the feet. Either way, I think he gets a finish here. I'm going to take the extra 20 cents that they're giving us right now, and I'm going to play him the under 2.5 as opposed to him inside the distance. And that is also going to be our first 5dimes.eu consensus bet of the week. Pedro Munoz, Damian Stasiak under 2.5 rounds at plus 100. You can get that at 5dimes.eu along with all of your other MMA gambling needs. Moving on to the main cards, we're going to kick it off in the middleweight division. Jack the Joker Hermanson against Alex, also a Joker, Nicholson, but in a different way. Because he's a joke.
Yeah. And he's friends with Mike Perry.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Good.
Jay, what do you got here?
Yeah. This is the opening fight of the main card. I guess because the other fights, the prelim cards are going to be on TV too, so all of them, I think, will be available for live betting at some books, so do keep that in mind.
The very first 2.
Right, so yeah, that makes this fight pretty intriguing as well. I think this is actually the reason I bring it up, because I think this is actually a really good live bet fight. I actually have Nicholson at D+, Jack Hermanson C-. 2 different kinds of styles. Nicholson kind of more of a balls to the wall type of fighter. Definitely hits harder. Will come at you very aggressively. Makes him dangerous for sure. He was dangerous in that Alvey fight early too. Before he kind of tires and then opponent sort of takes over. Hermanson is kind of the opposite. He's not necessarily a slow starter per se, but he's a lot more calculated. He fights at a pretty high pace, and is consistent for 3 rounds. If he doesn't have to worry about takedowns, so definitely an interesting fight. I think if you're going to play Hermanson, I think you wait until after the first round and live bet it. There's a decent shot that Nicholson wins the first round, and you can get Hermanson as you see Nicholson getting tired, or if you really think that Hermanson has no shot after the first, if he's really badly hurt or something, I guess you can take a look at Nicholson at that point. So that's kind of the angle I'm taking with this one. I grade Hermanson a little bit better because of his durability, and I just think in terms of fighter intelligence, or just fighting intelligence period, I think Hermanson will have a better game plan in this bout than Nicholson, who was of the Mike Perry mindset of just, kill or be killed. So yeah, I'll side with Hermanson, but definitely not a pre-fight wager. I'll be looking at live betting.
Sean?
Yeah, I don't really have a good read either way on this fight, but that is an interesting thought about the live betting. I agree with Jay. I think if Hermanson can weather the storm and not get too beat up, then he will have a good shot of taking the second and third, if not maybe finishing Nicholson late. For that, I will pick him, and no bet pre-fight, but we'll definitely be looking live to see if that plays out like that.
Wes?
Yeah, I actually liked Hermanson, before that Caesar fight. He just kind of got caught by the resurrection of that fucking guy. I don't know if they started shooting back up with juice or what, but I like the way Hermanson fights, man. I think he's got some pretty good skills. He's a really smart fighter. I can see exactly what Jay said happening here. He's got to weather that first round where Nicholson's going to be coming forward. But I think he can. I just think he's the better technical guy in this fight. I don't know if I can play him at that line, but a bet I do like here is the under, or fight doesn't go the distance. I can see Nicholson getting tired and Hermanson just putting it on him in the third round and getting him out of there. Also kind of covers you if Nicholson catches him with something early. So the under's probably going to be my bet here, and I'm gonna pick Hermanson. If he comes down some and maybe gets closer to minus 120 or something, I'll be betting Hermanson as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems to be moving the other way. Hermanson is up at minus 155 now, so hopefully it does come back the other way, because I do like Hermanson as well. I think that really the big thing that he's got over Nicholson is he's able to sustain his pace. Nicholson will throw a lot, he'll throw hard early, but he definitely slows down in fights later on, becomes less dangerous, and as Jay said, Hermanson's got a really steady pace that he's able to keep up for 3 rounds, and that's a lot of why he's had success in the past. I was very surprised by the outcome of that Butanch fight, but that's a very different matchup than he's facing here in Alex Nicholson. He's not going to have to worry about takedowns at all. He might even be able to throw some takedowns in there of his own just to throw Nicholson off balance. And I think in terms of the striking, he's going to be pushing forwards, and he's going to get inside on Nicholson and just sort of dirty this fight up, tire Nicholson out, and eventually I'm not sure if he finds a finish, just because Alvey hits really hard and he couldn't find a finish against Nicholson. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards Hermanson by decision in this one. Not really looking at anything in terms of a bet. Next up, welterweight division, and it's the first of 3 welterweight fights in a row. We have Nordine Taleb taking on the debuting Oliver Enkamp. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Oliver Enkamp on tape, but Nushan, I think you're bulkier than this kid.
Oh shit! That's not a good sign.
Oh shit! So we have a new tout on the horizon. Is that what I'm reading here, guys?
Yeah. Oh, he's been on the horizon, Jay. He's over the horizon, homie.
I mean, has anybody? I mean, I thought the man from Minnesota had 100% market share on the MMA tout game currently.
You can literally like go on like a 8-month run or something, and these fuckers think that it's time to start selling picks every time.
Man, I think I've had a better year than all these cats.
8 months is pushing it, Wes. We're talking like 1 month.
I'm matriculating.
Jay gonna be tout. Jay gonna be tout in like 3 weeks.
See, the thing about going tout is you got to get the language down first. If you
also need to have a lot of spare time.
Matriculating bookie bangers over here, Jay.
I mean, how are you gonna answer customers when you got like a 2 p.m. conference call? It makes it hard. I mean, you got to live with your parents. I mean, you got to have no expenses. You got to live in the can't have a job. I mean, you got to answer. That is your job. You got to answer customer emails.
Don't forget whoring yourself out. Not just all throughout the day.
You mean retweeting?
Retweeting your own tweets
that have nothing to do with anything? Yes. You just got to keep your name relevant. The more likes any of your random tweets get, the more followers you'll get, and the more for potential. I wouldn't even use Twitter if I knew. If I wasn't having to sell my soul. I only use it. I only use it to sell my soul because it's such a negative environment, and there's just so many negative people. I mean, I've never met anybody on Twitter I really want to meet in person. I mean, what the hell's wrong with me?
But have you met a person, period, in real life?
I mean, I can't say I have. I met a lot of monsters and a lot of scumbags, but I can't say I've ever met any nice people.
I've stayed at Jay's parents' house, and it's been nothing but monsters and scumbags on there.
I can't confirm nor deny any of that happened. Yeah, so... Anyway, where were we, Brad? We were talking about Oliver Enkamp. Right. So, he doesn't really look that tall, but he supposedly has a 77-inch reach, so I think he's got some orangutan arms.
That'll happen.
Yeah, that could happen, right? I got him at D. Nordine Taleb is C. When this fight was kind of announced, as you guys know, I do these scouting reports over at Oddsbreaker, so I do put a lot of focus on the newcomers. I Enkamp the only UFC newcomer in this fight. And I looked at this kid, I looked at Taleb, and I kept thinking to myself, man, Taleb's got a lot of advantages in this fight. I was like, I wonder if anyone else is going to kind of pick up on that. And then, suffice to say, 4 or 5 days later, Taleb is like, I think the line's moved $2.50. I think he was about a 3-1 favorite. When I was doing that breakdown over the weekend, and he's now about 530, 540 favorite.
Yep.
He's a justifiable favorite in this fight because Taleb's shown a lot of improvements during his time in the UFC. Surprisingly so in many cases. He's proven to be fairly durable. I mean, he went 15 minutes with Ponzinibbio, which is certainly not an easy task. His offensive wrestling isn't terrible. He's physically, pretty strong, pretty good athlete, and he's facing a guy like Enkamp, who, as Brad said, he's so darn skinny. He's going to get pushed around in this fight by Taleb. I think that's really the big thing. Is Taleb can just push this guy against the cage, and it could just be fought that way for 15 minutes. Taleb really doesn't need to put himself in much risk in this bout if he doesn't want to. I think he could easily do that in this bout. He's going to be able to control the action. I think the only way Taleb could ever really get in trouble here is if, Enkamp gets on top, because I think his ground and pound is pretty decent. But really, there's no reason for that to happen. Taleb is just so much physically stronger. I don't see him being taken down. I think just pushes the kid against the cage the entire fight and wins. I think Taleb, once the props come out, you can see the point handicap. That might be one way to play Taleb in. I think that's probably the best way because I'm not sure if Taleb finishes. He's not a natural finisher. But he gets the job done. I think he wins a wide decision.
You guys think that breakdown set the MMA Analysis record for longest breakdown for a completely useless and shitty fight ever?
I don't know. There's been some other ones that are pretty shitty, Brad.
That's true. Sean, what do you got here?
I can't blame people who grabbed Taleb at the opener of -300 or even after I moved a bit, -380. Enkamp is the guy he beat to get this shot. I guess it was a late replacement, so who knows if he was actually gonna get to the UFC without this fight falling apart. He beat a guy that was 8-9, and then the guy before that I think it was 3-5. The quality of competition, the quality of competition is not there. It is -535. It is MMA. It was a late notice. Maybe Taleb gets, confused because he was, training for Emil Meek, not this random other dude. But yeah, Taleb should be able to just muscle him. He has made improvements, which is surprising considering he's 35. I mean, he destroyed Eric Silva. He did okay against Pontoon Boat. He's picking up a couple little things late in his career. So yeah, he should get the job done. Don't know if he finishes. Just kind of a pass for me. I'll let the parlay queens have him.
Wes.
I mean, Encamp did beat a Brazilian named Hickson, so you might want to give him some credit here. You know,
I'm pretty sure that was a 3-5 guy.
It was a 3-3 Hickson
instead of a 300 Hickson.
300 Hickson, yeah. Yeah, Taleb should be just the big brother in this fight. I mean, he's going to be the far bigger man. He should absolutely win this fight. Nordine Talib minus 540 against anybody is just kind of crazy to me. I might look and see what the point handicap is, if I just want a little action on the fight, but yeah, probably a total pass for me. I might even take the in-camp and Toutmaster just because he's going to be 4 points, but Talib should win this fight.
You know, the one thing Encamp has going for him is he's from Superior Challenge, and we know that is the superior promotion in Scandinavia. So you know, maybe we got something here in stretched out Michael McDonald. But I think that Taleb is this is, you know, boy strength against man strength. Taleb's probably going to be able to push him up against the cage, take him down easily if he wants to. From what I've seen, Encamp, you know, even though he has some submissions on his record, he's basically a karate guy. Taleb's well equipped to deal with that, and you know, he's probably a little bit quicker and definitely a whole lot stronger and more powerful. So I like Taleb here. Not sure if it's a decision or a finish, just because I don't know much about Encamp when he's in trouble. So I guess we'll probably find that out on Sunday. Next up, welterweight division again, we have Abdul Razak Al Hassan against Omari Akhmedov. Or as I like to call him, not Omari Akhmedov, Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Just mini Sokoju. He's just little Sokoju. Jay?
Oh, I ain't going there. I got both these guys at D+. I think this is going to be a gun show. I think the fight. What is the under over on this one? 1.5. What's the price?
Minus 170 on the under.
That's fair. It's pretty fair. That's what both of these guys do. They go for it, and it's going to be a knockout type of fight. What we know is that Al Hassan hasn't been finished yet. Undefeated. Akhmedov has been finished, so that's why I think Al Hassan's favored, and that's probably why he ultimately wins. But we haven't seen Al Hassan against anybody of any decent value, and this is actually Al Hassan's best opponent. So let's see what happens.
Sean?
Yeah, I think this is far and away his best opponent. I know he did beat Charlie Ward, which is a pretty big feather in his cap. You know, that guy is a future contender.
Hell of a basketball player.
I mean,
he's a dual sport athlete, Wes.
Goddamn right.
He went to Lance's favorite school, so that says a lot.
Did he win the Heisman, or was he like a Heisman finalist or something?
Nah, he won it. Yeah, he won the Heisman.
There you go.
And that said, fuck football.
I mean, if you look at Al Hassan's record, he's doing what he's supposed to. He's crushing guys that he should win. But it's not like he's crazy young. He's 31 years old. When he makes that big step up, I mean, if that line is going to be inflated because of all these first round KOs, then I'll probably be there to fade him and see what he's actually got. I don't think Akhmedov is the guy to really test him. He gets hit way too much. He just just likes getting punched in the face, which is not a great thing to do if you're a fighter, because we know how that ends up. My guess is Alhassan gets him. I don't think Akhmedov might make it out of the first round. I don't have a good read on the total. But Alhassan should knock him out, because Akhmedov has terrible head movement and just likes to get punched in the face.
Wes?
Yeah, I'm not overly sold on Hassan either, but what they said was all just spot on. Amari's fought the far better competition, but any decent guy he runs into, he gets lit up by. So I just think Alhassan is going to eventually catch him in this fight. Just about as good a style matchup as he could ask for, because, like Sean said, Akhmedov loves to get punched in the face, and loves to get punched in the face a lot. So, he's going to catch him eventually. I might look at Hassan by KO when that comes out, if I want just a little bit of action on the fight, but probably a pass for me.
Yeah, my problem here is that even if Akhmedov does have success early, he always gets so tired by the third round that we haven't seen much of Alhassan's cardio. If it's anywhere near decent, he's going to have enough energy and enough power to just destroy Akhmedov in the third. I don't necessarily think it's going to get there. Usually we see that the guys that have the judo backgrounds generally have really good takedown defense, and this is a very, very athletic judoka. I think he's going to be able to stop the takedowns and probably get Akhmedov out of there early. So, can't really play anything because, he's, pretty juiced on the money line. Even him inside the distance is minus 180, and the under's 1.5 at minus 170. So, nothing I really like in this fight, but the pick is going to be Razak Alhassan. Next up, welterweight division, Peter Sabata, the World Eater, against Ben Saunders, the Rubber Garter. Jay?
I got both these guys a C-. I think this is a pretty competitive fight. One thing about Peter Sabata is he hasn't lost in Europe since 2010. Saunders coming over from the United States for this bout, so keep that in mind. Saunders' striking stats show him as a, decently more output than Sabata, but keep in mind, again, that Saunders had a really high strike output in that fight with Robertson, where he was just elbowing him in the head when he was when he had him in that triangle position for an extended period of time. Outside of that, I think he landed about 90 significant strikes in that bout. Outside of that, he's never landed more than 50 significant strikes in his time in the UFC, or any other major organization for that matter. Saunders is, quite a bit older. He's 34 years old compared to Sabata's 30. Sabata, I think, is a little more of a savvy fighter than Saunders. Saunders is, taken a lot of damage in his career. Certainly very capable in the submission game, but on the feet, I like Peter Sabata quite a bit more than Saunders. I think if somebody gets hurt in this fight, I think it's going to be Ben Saunders. And if the fight does go to the ground, I think Sabata is good enough to avoid, the submission attempts. I really do. And he's never been submitted in his entire career. Peter Sabata's. So I do like him a bit in this fight. I think this is a good opportunity for him to get a win on European soil, and to do so at a little bit of plus money. So I like Peter Sabata, to get the job done over the American Ben Saunders.
Sean?
I think I've bet Peter Sabata in all four of his UFC fights. Obviously he lost that fight against Kyle Noak. He got body kicked there and went down in a heap. He's looked alright, he has decent stand up, he can do some decent things, and Ben Saunders, he's done okay in the past. But like Jay said, he has taken a bunch of damage And I do think this is a close fight, but I do give Sabata the edge in the stand-up. Saunders has some good elbows and clinch work, but I think Sabata will be able to, get rid of those, block those, and do all right. I feel kind of dirty, Sabata is a fan of the Nazis, but what can you do? I guess hopefully he wins the fight, and yeah, that's about it.
It's a very insensitive thing to say, Sean. I don't appreciate that at all.
I know. I'm insensitive. What can I say?
Wesley, what do you got here? Uh-oh. Wes is dead.
No. Oh, sorry.
He's sleeping.
I was just thinking about that time Frankie Edgar was even money against Yair fucking Rodriguez. Kind of had my mind going there.
Good times. Man.
Yeah, man, Sabata's a really tough dude, man. A really solid, durable fighter, man. When they put him on these shows over there, he's almost, main card guy. He's a guy they really like over there, and rightfully so. The dude's, fought some decent competition and looked pretty good against it. The only loss he's had in the past few years is like a kind of liver kick KO to Kyle Noak a couple years ago. So really tough, durable guy. And I think Ben Saunders has just been catching a lot of guys that's literally just on their way out. Court McGee, Jacob Volkman, Kenny Robertson, just those type of dudes. And I think Sabata's he's got the toughness to beat Saunders in this fight. I think it's going to be a really close fight, but going to the cards over there, him fighting over in Europe, I think he can take this here. And at even money, I'll be betting Peter Sabata.
Yeah, I like Peter Sabata here as well. I think that he can do a little bit more in terms of the takedown game, and we know that if you get takedowns on Saunders, he's going to try and wrap you up in rubber guard and land elbows on you. But I think that Sabata's ground game is good enough that he's easily going to be able to pass through to half guard and sort of negate that rubber guard game that Saunders wants to play. And if you do that, Saunders is willing to spend a lot of time on his back. We talked about Chris Camozzi earlier in the card. Saunders is sort of the same, where if you get a takedown on him, you could spend the whole round in top control. And I could see Sabata doing that a couple times in this fight. And even if that doesn't happen, when they're striking, Saunders has a little bit of edge in terms of length. Obviously, he's dangerous in the clinch, but Sabata's shown big improvements in his striking, and he's really crafty on the feet. I think he'll be able to be even with Saunders in terms of the stand-up, and that means that I kind of like Peter Sabata. If you're even with a guy somewhere and you've got a big advantage on him in the other part of the game, I'm definitely going to be looking at you as my pick. And at plus 100, and with Sabata's track record within Europe, obviously Saunders is traveling for this fight, I think that adds up to a Peter Sabata win here. So I like him as well, and Peter Sabata is going to be our second 5dimes.eu consensus bet of the week at plus 100. Moving up to the co-main event, in the light heavyweight division, we have Latvian-Canadian Misha Serkinov taking on Swiss dude Volkan Ozdemir. Jay?
The 5th ranked light heavyweight. Volkan
Jesus
Ozdemir.
Christ.
Yeah.
Does that mean...
Where does that weight class go?
What was that?
So where did that weight class go, man?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Well, half of it went to Bellator.
After it got old.
Speaking of Bellator, that's where Volkan Ozdemir lost to Kelly Nunson.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
5th ranked
I got
light heavyweight in the UFC.
Yeah, versus 7th ranked. Yeah. Anyway, I got Ozdemir a D+, Serkinov a C+. Both these guys are still pretty unproven, especially Ozdemir. Ozdemir basically took out Osp, who's traditionally been one of the most overrated fighters in the UFC.
Just the way it is. He's not super high output, and if he can't get you to the ground, sometimes he gets in competitive striking exchanges and he gets tired. That's kind of what happened in that fight, even though he started to take over late, and honestly, I thought Ozdemir lost the fight. So, okay. Cirkunov doesn't have the output that Ozdemir does on the feet, but his ground game is still pretty darn good, especially in this weight class. He averages nearly 5 takedowns per 15 minutes in the octagon at a 56% offensive clip. He's taken all 4 of his UFC opponents to the ground, and he's finished all 4 of them. Daniel Jolly, Alex Nicholson, Ian Cute Labia, and Nikita Krylov. So, yeah, he's already beaten guys. You know, I think Cute Labia, if he fought Ozdemir, would be a pretty competitive fight. So, there's that. And I think he's a justified favorite again. Maybe a little high. I mean, I didn't think that, Cirkunov would be a 4.5 to 1 favorite here, but he should be the favorite, and I think he probably gets the job done over Ozdemir, who's due for a huge letdown performance after that win over Osp. So, that's what I think happens, but just as the line is currently constructed, better bets on the card.
Sean?
Yeah, I don't think Ozdemir is very good at all. I think he was just at the right spot at the right time against a fighter that will piss away fights really easily, and then he still sort of kind of didn't really win. Yeah, so I think the number's justified. I think Misha Cirkunov is pretty damn good, especially in this division when it doesn't take much to be pretty damn good. Likely he'll get Ozdemir down and sub him. Instead of going that route, I took a stab at Cirkunov getting the TKO at plus 481. I think that's pretty high considering he does like to go for subs, but I mean, it's not like he doesn't have TKOs on his record. I mean, he has landed some bombs on the feet, and he does punch guys on the ground. So I think that number is a bit high for a 205er who can hit pretty damn hard and doesn't mind going for punches on the ground. So I will go with that, and yeah, Cirkunov's gonna do work.
Wes?
Yeah, I think Cirkunov might even be a whole lot higher if Ozdemir didn't get that, kind of almost shady win over Osp last time. I just don't think he competes here, man. Cirkunov is for real, man. I think that guy's pretty good. I'm with Sean. I played a little of inside the distance at like a minus 140 or something around there, and sprinkled a little on the TKO at like plus 400 and something. That line, I know, like Sean said, Cirkunov goes for subs most of the time, but a light heavyweight TKO prop at plus 400 and something, you got to sprinkle on that. So, yeah, Cirkunov is the pick for me, and a little bit on inside the distance, a little bit on TKO.
Yeah, I like Cirkunov here as well. I was sort of looking at that TKO prop. It's come down a little bit. It's plus 451 now. I still think that's a decent play. The other thing I was looking at was Cirkunov in round 2. A lot of times, especially if he can get the early takedown, like we've seen in a couple of his UFC fights, he takes his time. He doesn't rush anything on the ground. He grinds people out and gets the job done when the opportunity presents itself. So, if you look at what happened to Ozdemir in that Bellator fight that I talked about, it was kind of the same thing. He got taken down, he got ground out, and the opportunity for the submission was there in the second round when he started to get a little bit tired. So I think the same thing could happen against a much better wrestler and a much better grappler in Cirkunov. So round 2 plus 400, that would probably be the only thing I look at in this fight. Not interested in the money line, not interested in the inside the distance line or anything like that. So probably a pass on this fight, but definitely picking Cirkunov to win. I don't even think Ozdemir, even in this diminished UFC light heavyweight division, is really a top 15 light heavyweight, and I think we'll probably see that play out over his next 3-4 fights. Finally, we're moving on to the main event, light heavyweight division once again, and we've got the foremost Swede in MMA, Alexander Gustafsson, coming back, and he's taking on Glover. Jay, it's Glover.
I guess it is. I mean, this is probably the fight that's gone the most under the radar of any fight this spring. I mean, it really is a pretty good fight on paper. And of the number 1 and number 2, ranked in the rankings. I know John Jones isn't ranked because he's been suspended, but still, I mean,
that kind of tells you a lot about light heavyweight too, though, doesn't it? Because
a little bit, yeah, but it's still
like 2 and 4, 2 and 3 in his last 5 fights.
But look who he's fought.
He's fought everybody.
Yeah. I think those 5 fights go back about 5 years, too. This guy's so inactive.
Yeah, 2013. Jones was in 2013.
Yeah. I got Gustafsson ranked as an A, rated an A, and Glover a B. I think we could kind of throw out Gustafsson's performance against Blachowicz. He had a bad back in that fight, and I just think that really kind of affected him and his output in that performance. And really his movement, which is really the key, I think, to this fight. Is Glover's kind of a plodding light heavyweight. I mean, what Glover wants to do is he wants to get inside and have a phone booth kind of a fight with anyone he fights. I mean, that's where he's at his best. Can land that uppercut, which is just one of the better uppercuts in all of the sport. His quick combinations. And if the fight gets to the ground, he's very comfortable there, being a jiu-jitsu black belt. But what's the difference in this bout is going to be that Gustafsson probably has some of the best footwork in this division. He moves in and out. He'll round the cage. When he's healthy, that's what he does. And Glover's going to have a hard time kind of keeping up with that movement. And Alex isn't going to, just sit there and, be target practice for Teixeira. And I think that's the difference in this fight. Gustafsson quite a bit younger, better movement, just he'll be able to pick, just kind of pick apart Glover from distance to win rounds, and ultimately, I think this could, go into the championship rounds. It'll be fairly competitive, but Gustafsson will just do, a little more in each of the rounds than Glover will, and get a decision here. I like Alex to win. I had him actually parlayed with Rory McDonald from last week's Bellator card, which was another, a really bad line. And there was a lot of people, I guess there were some, maybe it wasn't that bad because it seemed like there was quite a bit of Paul Daly backing. And that fight was never close. So that parlay I had with Daly and, Gustafsson, I think I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think it was 2.56 units for 2, so minus 128 bet.
There you go. That's how you do math, Jay.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
Just off the top of the head like that. Whew. Hey, Jay, how many times would you need to win on a minus 250 to...
He's almost right there. He's almost right there.
That's right there.
Sean, what you got here?
I think Jay's right. I think we're kind of underappreciating this matchup. With how shitty 205 is, I guess we should be kind of happy. This is, now that Rumble's gone, these are, outside of Cormier and Jones, this is the best matchup you can make, really. I like Gustafsson in this fight. I know he has kind of been not great in the past, but he is fighting the best fighters in the world, and he didn't look great against Blachowicz, but his back was not good for that. Let's hope that his back is fine for this fight. And then you got Glover, who's still training in his garage with the 14-year-olds running sprints and all that.
In Connecticut.
Connecticut.
In a garage,
doing his ice pass in a fucking garbage can.
in Greenwich, Connecticut, the mean street.
Oh, shit.
You think he's playing with Joey Gas?
Pete Gas, baby.
Pete Gas, Joey Abs.
Joey Abs.
Joey Abs.
Joey Abs.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, I like Gustafsson in this fight, just being younger and stuff like that. I think Glover's definitely on the tail end of his career. He's starting to slow down. He did get obliterated by Rumble, which happens, obviously. Gustafsson knows all about that. But he also wasn't looking great very early against OSP. And that was a little bit a while ago, but still. I think Gustafsson uses his length and his movement, like Jay said, and kind of picks Glover apart, tires him out, and I think Gustafsson's actually going to get a finish in like the fourth round. I had that same parlay with Gustafsson and Rory McDonald, and I played fight doesn't start round 5 at minus 149. I know a lot of people are kind of expecting this to go decision, but I think Glover's best shot to win this is to land something early, and if he doesn't do that, I think he's going to gas late from all the volume that Gustafsson puts on him.
Fair enough. Wes, what do you got?
Gustafsson should win this fight. There's just, man, it's getting close to the point where there's just, red flags on Gus, man, but still only 30, probably closer to 40 in fight years, but man, Teixeira is pushing 38, and that dude's been in some fights as well. Teixeira has beaten a lot of just, man, guys that are really bad or washed up in the past few years, and Gus is fighting the best of the best. Was off like almost a year after the DC fight, didn't look great against Jan like those guys said, but slight back injury, almost a year off. You can kind of let him get away with that one. Just had a kid. I know that kind of goes both ways with fighters. Some do better, some kind of don't. Guess you can't really
ripping lines of cocaine like Connor.
Yeah, hanging out in tree houses, fucking huffing on fucking nitrous and shit, But yeah, man, like Jay said, I think footwork is the key to this fight. If Gus is able to move like he usually is, he's going to piece Glover up in this fight. Glover still has that I wouldn't even say one shot knockout power anymore, almost that, combination power. He still does have that, but man, Gus is just, his footwork is some of the best you'll see. I think he stays on his bike a little bit and pieces Glover up, and I'm with Sean as well. I see a later finish, a 4th or 5th round finish out of Gus after he's landed quite a few strikes on Glover. So I'll be looking at that angle. Gus inside the distance. I kind of like it right around even money. I parlayed him last week when he was still like minus 280 or something like that. So, yeah, I like Gus in this fight.
What do you guys think of that over?
I was looking at it as like a hedge. I was hoping it'd be a little bit more down.
Hit like a middle or something.
Yeah, like a hedge. Hope for the middle. Yeah, that's what I was kind of looking at too.
Yeah, I think that's actually... the over by itself is a pretty decent play. I don't think Gus is going to stop him early, and as you guys have said, unless Gus, his back flares up or he never really got it fixed the way he should have, he's going to have too much movement for Glover to really be able to get hands on him. So I have a hard time seeing the fight not going over 2.5. But anyways, as far as the fight goes, I'm leaning towards Gustafsson. The big concern is definitely injuries. We've seen him injured so many times in the past that it wouldn't be shocking to see it again. And if that's the case, if he doesn't have that speed advantage over Glover, obviously Glover has huge power. So if he lands on Gus's chin, that could be all she wrote here. Also, if Gus goes in for a sloppy takedown or something like that, we could see that Glover wraps up that guillotine, and we know that he's got a really solid guillotine. But more likely, I think that Gustafsson just sort of uses his movement, uses his hands, and kind of pieces Glover and uses the big speed advantage to get a 5-round decision. So it's a good fight. I think Gustafsson generally has been overrated for his 2 big performances, the losses to Jones and Cormier, and Glover's kind of been underappreciated in his entire career in the UFC. He came in with so much hype that because he didn't immediately rocket to the top and beat John Jones, that people kind of forgot about him and have been less impressed by him and what he's done than they should have been. So, good fight, but I just don't think it's going to play out as the most interesting fight stylistically to watch, and I do think that Gustafsson wins a decision here. That does it for our UFC Fight Night 109 breakdown.
We back.
We back. We did it, Mama. We did it, Mama. We back. Next card after
guess you gotta remember though that Frankie was even money against Yair fucking Rodriguez, right?
Man.
Alright, that's the last time. That's the last time.
We're gonna get crushed. We're gonna go 0-2 on our consensus bets for fucking doing that.
I don't even care. Don't even care.
Still worth it. Still worth it.
Yep, because, even if these bets lose, I can always remember the time that Frankie was even money against Yair Rodriguez.
That's good shit.
And that's going to do it for us this week, folks. We'll be back next week. Aldo Holloway.
There's like a fight. Yeah.
Joanna was minus 350 after round 2 against Jessica Andrade, too.
I fell asleep during that.
Could have been minus 10,000. It didn't matter.
I fell asleep during that fight.
That's too bad, Brad.
I woke up when the crowd roared when Stipe knocked out JDS and rewound it and saw that. And I still haven't gone back to watch Joanna and Andrade. Sorry. Not sorry. Not interested.
Let's make another division. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Woo.
Do it.
Pumped. Hey, speaking of other divisions, we didn't talk about this just before we go. TJ Dillashaw moving down to 125. Demetrius Johnson's Demetrius Johnson's all like, fuck you, pay me.
Yep.
Good for him. Yeah.
He fucking should.
Well, that's a pretty intriguing fight if it happens, I'll say that.
It's a great fight if it happens. That's, man.
I'd be excited for it.
Those
the first
are
Demetrius fight I'd be excited for in a long while.
Yeah.
You're
Probably
talking,
since the Cejudo fight.
Arguably 2 of the best technical strikers, DJ even more so fighter than there is in the sport. That's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's
pretty good.
That would be a tough one to call, but I'd be excited to watch that.
Anyway, size
note,
might play difference.
Yeah, that's what's given DJ troubles in the past. On that note, we're going to get out of here for the week. We'll be back next week for that UFC 212 Aldo Holloway card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.